I have totally just lost track. Every time I start one of these sessions, I'm like, what the freak day is it? Because I can't remember. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. I'm with Carolyn. And we're going to have a chat about the stuffs. And it's the middle of the pandemic. Maybe it's the middle. Maybe it's the end. I don't know what the freak is going on. So we're just going to have a chat. We got some subjects that we had pulled up from... including from previous sessions, and also going to talk about what she's doing in the craziness and what's going on at my shingle. So we'll start there, Carolyn. How are things in Carolyn's world?
Carolyn's world, I am very good. I am been doing a lot of things on Zoom and working from home, which I've worked from home before, and just as I was getting accustomed to being out of the house and in the office, to go right back again. So, but I don't mind. I mean, I'm pretty flexible. I feel like I'm pretty adaptable. I mean, if I'm going to get work done, I can do it anywhere. And if the work isn't something that catches my attention, again, it doesn't really matter where I am. So
you've been a solo who's done not consumer level stuff, right? Like you've done big firmy stuff.
Right.
For 20 years. I mean, how long has it been that you've been doing?
25 years is so long, so long. So, so now I've been doing, I guess like the past 10 years, I've been doing a lot of pipeline work. I represent landowners who are fighting pipelines, natural gas pipelines. And so the cases like run through like a course. So like 2 years ago, they were in the decisional stage where they were fighting at the administrative agency. And then there were some appeals like to federal appellate courts, and that's where I tend to go up against the big firms because they all have their fancy appellate shops. And now a lot of the cases are in eminent domain in different courts across the country. So that's just traditional federal court litigation. So that's kind of where the bulk of things are now. And I picked up a bunch of cases because there are some people who are discovering that there are really more damages in these pipelines than have previously been disclosed. So. Yeah.
So there's law stuff and there's my shingle stuff, and it's sort of a weird, the amount of content that is being created right now is insane. And I can't figure out, are we all just talking to ourselves? Like, is this some really bad therapy that we're doing? Are people, everybody's starting a podcast right now because whatever. Is anybody listening to podcasts right now? Are people nobody's driving anymore? What's anybody doing? Why are we writing all this stuff, Carolyn?
It's not just writing. I've noticed that there's this insane, with video. I mean, and I have to confess, I mean, I've done more things with video too. I interviewed the 14 solos on video. I mean, I think that people, video has always been an option. I did videos 10 years ago, but it was clunky and difficult and nobody was on the other end to talk to. So I think there's more people to talk to since lawyers are more comfortable with Zoom. But I know I keep reading about all of the benefits of video for marketing. And I don't get it because on the one hand, I look at the YouTube sites or even some of the Facebook sites and I see like 3 hits. But then I see these articles from HubSpot or from, the latest Business Insider, and they're talking about, 83% more retention rate at your website if you have a video and this and that. And maybe it's just that lawyer videos are just like boring. I mean, it's one thing to like watch a cooking video. That's kind of interesting. But, do you really want to hear even a really animated person talking about trust and estate law? It just, I don't know. It's not like something people are going to necessarily sit down to and listen to.
That's why people come here. It's for the recipes. I'll have to tell you guys, I did some things with beans tonight that is because we're in the apocalypse. I have to like find cool ways to cook beans, right? Because we just got, because we're Mormon, and so we have some food storage stuff, not nearly as much as you're supposed to, but it's like a rule, and so you're supposed to have like a year's worth of crap in your garage, and we have some of it. And I figure if now's not the time to bust open the 5-gallon bucket of beans, when is the time for the 5-gallon bucket of beans? So we're just bean ninjas right now. That's why you guys are here. I did want to talk to you. So you and I have this cool advantage of we don't have to know anything about the future, which is great. There's so many people right now that in this crazy moment are being asked Tell me the future. And I'm going to show you guys. I shared this article from Mark Cohen a few days ago. There was another one from Bob Ambrogi. You're seeing like a bunch of these sort of articles that are saying X is going to happen. Here's what the new normal is. This has changed everything. And Carolyn, maybe I'm just a pessimist, but I sort of feel like either courts going on to Zoom is a way bigger deal than I think it is, which is possible, or man, our bar is low. That we think courts going on Zoom is super amazing. We're still having, like, all I see that's changed right now is courts have called a bunch of things non-essential. So it's not that we've gotten rid of hearings, we've just stopped doing them, and then certain kinds of essential hearing, whatever that means, we're doing on video. I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm being a pessimist, but if we're waiting for events to change us, I'm not that moved by that.
But, so honestly, I don't, like, I'm not sure if you're, how active you are practicing these days, but like I said, right now when these changes hit, I'm in the middle of a lot of, like, more litigation than I've had in years. And so I see firsthand all of the costs involved, especially as somebody who's handling cases in different parts of the country. So before this pandemic hit, I was litigating a case in Philadelphia, and I was going up there all the time. I begged and pleaded to do these depositions on Zoom or by video, and the other side just refused. And they flew one witness cross country from California, like over a weekend, just to get him in person. And their bill was huge, but their bill is also partly my bill because I had to go up and listen to the deposition, and then the reporter. She accused me of ordering a transcript, which I didn't. I have to budget things and order them. So just having this stuff. So now Zoom is seamless, and the recent depositions I've done have all been on Zoom. And in fact, recently, one of the lawyers I was talking to who gave me pushback, I told him that I have one witness who's actually willing to appear in person, and this lawyer said, "No way, let's keep doing it on Zoom. It's not safe to go back into the safe to go back into the whatever." So I think even though these changes, like for a normal person, are not anything like innovative or a big deal. I mean, in our profession, this is like, show stopping.
Yeah, I was thinking about the example of, I've got a friend who's a family lawyer in Chicago, and they do a thing where in a family case, you have a status hearing every month. A physical, you got to go to court, and they have a cattle call system, I think, where you show up and everybody waits for their assignment for what time they're going to go for these hearings that you have every month. And like part of me says, yes, it would be really cool if those moved to Zoom and you don't have to wait and whatever. The other part of me is like, what the freak are we having these hearings for? You know what I mean? And maybe I'm like letting perfection be the enemy of good, or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah, no, well, that's always my gripe about innovation. My feeling is that, why are you automating the 57 forms that you have to fill out to get a divorce? Why do you have 57 forms to begin with? You shouldn't be automating something that's that complicated. And that's the criticism about like TurboTax, or those automated tax companies are trying to, keep tax code complicated so that they can make more money from their system. So I do agree with you. I think a lot of things, estate planning, well, I don't care if you can push a button and generate a will for me. Make it so that I can push a button when somebody kicks the bucket and don't have to do anything. Just everything magically transfers. So to me, that would be true innovation. But again, we have to look at the context. We're in the middle of like a legal profession where, like I said, a sea change is getting something on Zoom. And in fact, in one of the lawyers groups I'm in Maryland, I didn't even realize actually Maryland courts do not all have e-filing. Like there's a reason I don't practice in the state of Maryland.
Aaron Levine, by the way, is in San Francisco area. They don't have e-filing, which I find hilarious. San Francisco, that's hilarious to me.
What is up with that? That's but anyway, there was somebody who posted about, I guess in Texas, there was a non-binding jury trial that was part of some mediation session, and somebody posted about it, and 4 people commented, bad idea, would never do that, due process violation. I said, look, maybe it's not good for criminal cases, but isn't this something worth thinking about? Don't we want our clients' cases to advance? People couldn't even read the comment clearly. They kept saying, I don't want my, criminal client, like, having to go through this. How would I cross-examine somebody? These are things that you figure out. It's just, So I think Zoom trials for this group of people is like these are big things for these people. I agree with your perspective.
So do you feel like there was something that happened in 2008 when we were talking about this back then, that you were going to see consolidation of the mid firms would be bought by the big firms because they'd have the capital and the mid firms wouldn't. And then you'd see a bunch of solos and they'd disaggregate and then whatever, right? That was predicted then, and it didn't happen. The big firms pretty much just went back to exactly what they were doing before, and then they trickled down to some mid firms, and they were billing roughly the same. They were doing roughly the same. So all the talk in 2008, you're hearing it all again, and I'm like, your answer's probably it depends on how long this lasts, because a lot depends on how long this lasts, but do you feel like there might be movement to this now where we're going to disaggregate the employer-employee relationship, or are law grads in 5 years going to jump right back to, oh, wait, I can get a big firm job for $180,000 a year? Well, obviously I'm going to go do that, right?
Yeah, well, as long as the cost of tuition is as high as it is, people will get the big firm job if they can. And so I think that that's just economics. I was at my law school reunion 2 years ago, and like after the night party, my classmates and I wound up talking to a group of kids who had just graduated. All of them were going to big law, and all of them were going with the intention of paying off their loans and doing something else after that. Right. So I think that you do have that. I mean, I don't know, who knows what legal education will look like if law schools, I mean, people are talking about, will colleges be able to stay afloat if the pandemic continues and people don't get the same experience? I mean, I guess law school is different. You truly can do law school online, probably, more so than many other experiences. But there's so many, it's just funny. There's so many multiple pieces, and sometimes the reason that something happens isn't the one you think. Like I'd mentioned before we started the show that I've got 2 part-time law students starting at my firm tomorrow. And one poor guy had lost not just one job, but 2 jobs because of the pandemic. And I assumed it was just because of funding. But one of the jobs was at a government agency. And the reason he couldn't start wasn't really so much the funding, but because they couldn't do the fingerprint test for him to get security clearance. And so he couldn't start. So a lot of times it's like something happens and it's the thing that you thought, but it's for a different reason.
Yeah, I'm just sort of feeling like the organizations that have the biggest impact, not on my day-to-day, really, like as a solo practitioner, I mean, you have a lot of control over your day, but the people pushing the levers are law schools and bar associations and courts, and those systems have they've survived world wars and depressions, and I sort of am like, sorry, after 3 months of being home, and all the same people are going to show back up. It's not like the judge died, and so we have a new. It's literally the same people going to come back with the same culture. Maybe to me, and this is just my vibe, is screw waiting for events to make you make changes. If this is making you go, hey, we should think about some great, then just go freaking do them. Like, why are you waiting? Don't wait for courts. Don't wait for bars. Push.
No, so that's actually one of the projects that I'm actually excited about for my students to work on. It's I'm going to, so in some of the cases that I have, we're waiting to have a trial before commissioners. And so what I want them to do is like put together the whole protocol for what this trial would look like if you did it online. What kind of technology would you use? What are some of the security challenges? What are some of the interpersonal challenges? Like look at all of the components and put together like a really good plan that we're going to file with the court to preempt the other side from saying, let's hold this case up for 5 more months so that we can repair the site or something like that. And I'm actually hoping that maybe if they do a really good job, we can use that template to, to promote that somewhere else. And again, it's not anything revolutionary. And maybe the idea is, not having, and sometimes it's having trials, sometimes not having trials. I mean, it's so hard to conceive. You get so entrenched in the way of thinking about these things. But I do agree with you that, you've got to just like take the plunge and just be proactive and just do the stuff instead of.
Which has always been that's always been your mantra, is just go own it, right?
Yeah. But don't always do it.
So speaking of, the other day I shared this article with the group, and when it's about women not being able to speak in meetings and stuff, and the impact that it has in different social systems. And when I shared it at the time, I was like, I don't have a guest on the show to talk about this tonight because it's fraught for everybody, both for men and women, as a subject. The great thing about you is you're like, screw it, I'm happy to talk about this. So you and I talked a little while ago about the ABA report of the women are all leaving, and when they presented it, and it was this disaster because women leaving means they're not going to they're not going to the top of big firms, basically. And it was just this like leadership crisis. But the lady who presented it said, from the data, the question is not why are women leaving. It is why are they not leaving earlier? So I wanted to sort of get what's your feeling on women in the legal space, and especially in the, I mean, you've been writing about women owning their firms a lot lately. I mean, maybe this has been true for a while, but I've noticed it a lot in the last few months that you've been on this subject. Where's your head at on the issue of women in law?
So, I mean, I don't, I did work at Big Law at one time. It was a very long time ago, and working against Big Law is not the same as working there. So I just don't know. I don't have a good sense of like what it's like now and what kinds of things they're doing and whether it's a good situation or bad situation. So that's something that's difficult to speak to. I mean, I know that there are, at least it seems to me, increasingly more women who are starting firms, not just for work-life balance, but to make a lot of money and support their families and be able to, have control. And with earning money comes other types of power too. I mean, political power and, financial power to be able to, also like fund causes that you want to fund. So I think that, more women are starting to recognize law firm ownership as, a means to play a bigger role or have more of a voice in the profession. I think that's a good thing. And I kind of never understood the thing about the women not talking. I mean, because that's like, I'm always the one who's
because you're you.
I know they want to like, I was like in the middle of the asshole bingo card in law school.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, just because of our point of interest, I'm not that concerned about big firms, figuring out how to deal with this issue. And I don't remotely blame the women for being like, why am I doing this? That makes perfect sense to me. Good on you. Go do that. I am concerned about things like if women are not represented in, for example, we were talking about the future of law conversation and like the direction of legal tech. Legal tech is a fascinating area for women because you're overlapping the sexism of law with the sexism of technology, right? Like you've got both of them at the same time in this perfect storm of crapness. And, so you don't have a lot of women in that conversation. And if they are there, they're often pushed to the back and they're not paid. That bugs me, right? Like where we're going in access to justice and how we're servicing that and lawyer wellness, which is to me as important as access to justice. We're not talking about those things with women at the table. That's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. No, I feel like with legal tech, I did once write an article, first of all, about for all the flaws with legal tech, it's done more to help women advance in law just by giving them an opportunity to be able to, to do the work after hours or do work at certain times and still, and still spend time with family if that's what they're interested in. But it does seem like there are women, who, either who own the companies like the, what's that pro bono company?
Paladin. Yeah.
Paladin. And, Nikki Black is a friend of mine. She's always been like a voice in legal tech. Sharon Nelson has been around for a long time.
Lucy Basile, Alma Say.
Right.
Yeah. Next chapter. What's her name?
Janine.
Janine. Yeah. So there are definitely female founders, but you go to any of these events, you wouldn't, with rare exception, you wouldn't know it, right?
Well, I go to a lot of these events anymore. I cannot stand the talk anymore. I can't take another, I just can't sit through I can't. It's too much talking, no action. I can't do it anymore. My time is, I have, honestly, my daughters are grown. And I work from home, so now I don't have any kind of commute. So I wouldn't say I have time on my hands. I'm busy. I have a lot of projects I want to work on, but I have more time now than I've ever had before. And I'm not going to waste chit chatting at a conference or. I mean, of
Which
course,
is too bad because that's where we hang out. Well, and on that, just one other thing I wanted to talk to you about. As we mentioned, you've been creating a bunch of content at MyShingle, and you're using video, and you're having these webinars and conversations. I was interested in this. Is totally self-centered because my book is all about teaching lawyers to create supply chains, to not work just by themselves, and figure out how to coordinate with other people, whether that's, joint ventures or partnerships or, these fee sharing agreements. And you actually have a webinar coming up about that, which I think is awesome. So talk to me a little bit about that, what you expect to chat about on there. Give me the hook. Let's get people to go show up for that webinar.
Okay, so it's my hook is that they're called Power Packs.
Two P's. There you go.
I like that name. But so I've started noticing that, again, during the pandemic, a lot of people are uncertain about their job future. They're taking pay cuts at law firms or getting laid off in-house and looking for other options. And many of these people are not necessarily ready to start their own firm because they don't know if this is just going to be a temporary situation. And so that got me initially thinking about, well, if you're not going to do that, there's still other ways to skin this cat to make your money while still, not being at your traditional firm. And one of those ways is through an of-counsel relationship where you can provide your expertise to another firm that may be serving clients that have that kind of interest in it. And so then, there's a whole host of those types of arrangements of counsels, affiliations, which are, loose, groups of people working together. So there's a bunch of those different ideas. And of course, with each of them, they present many questions. There are ethics issues, and people just also want like a good model of like what it looks like. So I will, there be providing forms after the webinar for that. But just going to talk about those different, what these different options are for working together and for creating a stream of revenue, because you can have your own firm, but a second stream of revenue can be money you get in an of-counsel relationship, or money you get by referring cases to a personal injury firm or a family law firm or an employment law firm that pays you a percentage. I mean, that's how, in small businesses, there's a lot of cross-marketing and referral fees. And we'll talk about the options for cross-marketing and how people can find those opportunities for, for themselves. So they'll cover all of those different things. And it's something that certainly can help lawyers who have their own practices, but it can also help those, again, who are kind of being displaced in this pandemic and not really sure what they want to do next. And so that's usually a broader audience than the one that I speak to.
Yeah, I was reading, because I'm an SSRN nerd, I just go over and read articles there, but I was reading this article that was talking about a study of a bunch of small businesses. They said the word firms, but just to not confuse lawyers about, they're not talking about our firms, but small businesses. They made this line, it was like a throwaway line at the beginning, said, modern small businesses are so networked together that they're practically the size of large businesses. And I was like, no, we're not. We don't do that, which is just fascinating to me. I mean, you know this. You can pull by connecting with other people. You can compete with any size firm. I mean, you literally can have the resources of any kind of firm. I mean, it's different. Obviously, the context is different, but there's no. There's no case we can't take, right?
Right. And it's also kind of a. I know a lot of bars or associations are looking at, getting rid of the model rule 5.4 on the ban to non-lawyer firm ownership. But what lawyers don't realize is you can joint venture with somebody who is a non-lawyer, and you can structure those agreements in a way that you're not sharing fees, but that you're both jointly marketing for mutual benefit. And you can create an information product. I mean, like a lawyer who does cybersecurity can create an information product with a, forensic, a computer person who does forensics. And you can put information products together. You can offer like hybrid services, where it's clear who's doing what and what's getting paid for. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of even opportunities to team up with non-attorneys, which is very helpful. It's always good to be the one attorney that the non-lawyer knows, because then you get all the business from them too. So, so all of these agreements are like kind of different ways to achieve the same goals that you might when you change these bar and ethics rules, which, and who knows when that will ever happen. And yeah, like you said, gives you bigger scope, and you can share costs, and you can do bigger things. And it is a stream of revenue. The other thing that was very interesting to me is that small businesses get a stream of revenue from these cross referrals. Like when you go to the gym and they're selling the vitamin bars or something at the desk, I mean, they're getting a cut of each of those sales. That's a revenue stream. Right. So, and that's kind of like a cross marketing affiliate relationship type of thing. So, yeah.
You are speaking my language. So thank you. You guys make sure you sign up. I put the link below. And if you guys have any questions for Carolyn, you can post them in below this video, and she's around. She probably is smarter than me and is not on Facebook very much, which is good because Facebook is a cesspool. Well, Twitter has the ability to mute subjects that I don't want to listen to. So I can go, I have muted the word Trump and the word Lakers because those are the two things that make me angry. And so I just shut them off. Facebook is more complicated. Though Damian Reel at Fastcase sent me a tool that will do a version of that on Facebook as well. So I'm going to turn that on. You're a star. Thank you. You guys sign up for the webinar. Otherwise, if people want to just connect with you, follow you, where's the best place to do that?
You can find me on Twitter at Carolyn Elefant, and I'm also My Shingle has a page on Facebook. So those are cool. The best ways. Also my blog, myshingle.com.
Awesome. I'll put some links on that. Again, you guys, this is not a very formal environment. You guys have anything you want to chat with Carolyn about, post it below, and we'll get to the conversation. It's Facebook. Just hang out. We're all so bored. We're not really bored, but we're lonely. Okay, we're
you've got a house full of people.
I'm not that kind of lonely. My wife used to do this thing where she would go to when we had little kids. She'd go to Target, and if somebody was looking at something, she would talk to them for like 20 minutes because she needed adult attention. So because she was just dealing with kids all the time. That is how I feel right now. I'm so lonely while being surrounded with people. Carolyn, thank you for hanging out. Have a good night. You guys have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow, same bat time, etc. Have a good night.